Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
This is my rifle, this is my gun, this is for mine, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com. Breaking news right now, suspect is in custody. They're holding a press conference right now in Utah at this very moment. 22-year-old Utah man is in custody. I will not name him, but he apparently, according to the Drudge Report and the AP, the 22-year-old was turned in by his father, who is a police officer there in Utah. This should be it should be interesting just to see the insights into why this took place and what's going on. But I really don't, I don't care to name him. Now that if this guy who bears a striking resemblance, the pictures are already up. You can go look for them. You can go look at them for yourself. If this guy turns out to be the one, then I hope that with due process and everything else, that the governor of Utah gets his way, because he has already stated that this will be a death penalty case. So we'll see what goes on from there, and as those details develop, we'll give them to you here this morning. But today I have another direction that I'd like to go in. I want to talk about the reaction across the country, and I want to talk about where we go from here, where we as a people, but more specifically, where we as a group of conservative citizens, of people who were fans of Charlie Kirk, who want to advocate for his ideals, who want to carry on his legacy, where we should go. And this will be wrapped in some of the discussions today about the Second Amendment, because Charlie was a very big Second Amendment supporter, and that's what Firearms Friday is about. So we're going to spend this first hour kind of going over some of the things and going over some of the reactions, because I think that was one of the most telling things to me, was the reactions to various people, from various people, to the shooting. And I think that's what was shocking to many of the folks out there. I think I think some people have had their eyes opened. I think some people, there's been some very bad puns used for Charlie's organization about, turning point. This is a turning point, but I think it may have been prescient, because I really think that this could be an inflection point. This could be a turning point in our country. Now we saw some of the standard commentary. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, that there was a lot of reactions. I had a whole page earlier of people on Facebook who were gloating about how Charlie was advocated gun violence, and that he kind of got what he deserved because, that there's an acceptable level of loss with the Second Amendment, and now he's getting his comeuppance or something like that. And even AOC, even Andrea Ocasio-Cortez got into the action again. Kind of a despicable human being. Here's what she had to say about Charlie Kirk yesterday.
People can finger point all they want. Look at the record. Look at the actions of what we are doing. I don't think a single person who has dedicated their entire career to preventing gun safety legislation from getting passed in this House has any right to blame anybody else but themselves for what is happening.
So it's Charlie's fault because he was an advocate for not gun safety. He wasn't against gun safety. He was against gun control. He was pro-freedom. He used statistics and logic and arguments about this. I saw one quote, Charlie wasn't a hero. He was violent and harmful man. he was a violent and harmful. Well, apparently, again, the words are violence. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, that the words are violence. And that there was a common theme in all the verbiage and all the videos and all the posts and comments that I saw yesterday. I dug into this pretty hard yesterday to look at this because I wanted to see what were people, what were they talking about? And they keep coming back to this idea that Charlie was advocating for gun violence and that there were acceptable losses. And they took this one little phrase out of context all the time. So I actually wanted to give you Charlie's full response to this question, because you've probably seen it too, that he advocated that a certain number of people, that was the price that we have to pay for a freedom, is that a certain number of people died, and Charlie got his, or whatever the answer is. But I thought that context was important, so I want to share with you the actual question and the actual answer, so that you can have it in its full breadth and context, and then kind of try and talk a little bit about what he thought in regards to that, and some of my thoughts about, kind of tying those things together. So the question about the whole acceptable losses quote that we keep hearing about was a question from somebody named Austin. It says, Charlie, I'm Austin. I just had a question related to the Second Amendment rights. We saw the shooting that happened recently. A lot of people are upset, but I'm seeing people argue from the other side that they want to take our Second Amendment rights away. How do we convince them that it's important to have the right to defend ourselves and all that good stuff? And here's Charlie's response. Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So I'm a big Second Amendment fan, but I think most politicians are cowards when it comes to defending why we have a Second Amendment. This is why I would not be a good politician, or maybe I would, I don't know, because I'm actually speak my mind. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. I love hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about personal offense. That is important. The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government. And if that talk scares you, wow, that's radical, Charlie. I don't know about that. Well, you've not really read any of the literature of our founding fathers. Number two, if you've not read any 20th century history, you're just living in Narnia. By the way, if you're actually living in Narnia, you would be wiser than wherever you're living, because C.S. Lewis was really smart. So I don't know what alternative universe you're living in. You just don't want to face the reality that governments tend to be tyrannical, and that if people need an ability to protect themselves and their communities and their family. Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price, and that is part of liberty. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. That's a price. You can get rid of driving. You'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we've decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having product services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. You could significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, by having more armed guards in front of schools. We could also have an honest and a clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That's nonsense. It's drivel. But and I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It's rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. So then, how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How do we stop shootings at baseball games? Because we have armed guards outside of baseball games. That's why. How did we stop all the shootings at airports? We have armed guards outside of airports. How do we stop all the shootings at banks? We have armed guards outside of banks. How do we stop all the shootings at gun shows? Notice there's not a lot of mass shootings at gun shows. There's all these guns because everyone's armed. If your money or our sporting events and our airplanes have enough armed guards, why don't our children? That's the full quote. That's the full, Megillah, whatever. That's the full meal deal right there. That it is part of a rationale of, the car example is a prime example. We have decided that, people are going to die on the road. People are going to die in their endeavors of doing anything that has some element of danger to it. It's going to happen. We have decided that the benefits of being able to drive, for example, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road, because otherwise we would just eliminate all cars. Right? We would just eliminate all cars. But we decided that is great. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. He said in other case, and I've said, and many people who are liberty-minded have said, freedom is messy. Freedom is messy. It's not I know everybody wants that kind of perfect utopian ideal, but it's just not going to happen. And the other thing that we don't talk about, because, we pay a price for that freedom. Things do get messy and things, people can get hurt and everything else. But we also don't talk about the other benefit of an armed society, and that's the defensive gun use. Charlie has had several conversations where he talks specifically about defensive gun use. We've talked about it on this program with Dr. Lott and everything else, where you see that an armed citizenry will stop a crime in many cases before it's actually even able to be committed. That it's the defensive gun use of people, the non-violent defensive gun use, the mere presence of a firearm, the presentation of a firearm, that has stopped crimes even by some of the lowest metrics, the lowest numbers, over 100,000 up to 2 million times a year. From strictly a mathematical standpoint, if you have 15,000 murders a year from gun violence, from utilize a firearm in their death, that's murders, not suicides, just murders, 15,000, and yet you were able to stop 100,000 to 2-point-something million other crimes a year. The math on that checks out. The math on this checks out. Now, you've seen some of the reactions, and what's interesting is there's a new divide in the, in the American, in the, it used to be just, Republicans and Democrats, or conservatives and liberals, but now there's a new subdivide among the more progressive side of the equation. And we're going to get to that here in just a second. And we'll break that down for you. Some interesting stuff this morning. All right. We'll be back with more in a minute. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Gun deaths, car crashes. Yeah, I mean, again, Harold, that's what I was saying. I don't include suicides in those numbers because people with suicidal ideation will find a way. Doesn't matter if it's a gun or a train or a knife or pills, throwing themselves off a building or smoking themselves out in their garage in their car. The inclusion, 58% of those fatalities, the inclusion of suicides skews the number for what we're talking about here, because suicides are going to happen regardless. Good morning. Let's see what else you guys are talking about here this morning. Brian says, don't they have a firing squad in Utah? No, it's actually by hanging. I saw that yesterday, that was the hanging. Lisa said, when I lived in Arizona, a police officer's son was a serial rapist and he got away with it because his dad shared details with him, but they finally caught him. It took a while. I'm glad they finally got him. Yeah, no, the father actually turned him in, which, according to the reports right now. So we'll see. Barbara said, words are violence is how they attempt to silence people. I agree. But they're also now using that as an excuse to perpetrate real violence back at people, right? Did he say and all that stuff? Where did I say that? I mean, I was literally reading from his quote verbatim. So if I said it during the quoted part, then he did say and all that stuff. Or maybe I ended up at the end. I don't know. Frank said, I don't know why I really knew about this guy now 2 days on Duke's show. Because I think this is a point. Frank, if you didn't know about Charlie Kirk before, I mean, I guess that it's excusable. I'm not saying that everybody had to know about him, but I think that anybody that was really paying attention to the narrative and to who was influencing kind of the new generation, Charlie Kirk stood out there for sure. In 2023, says Anthony, medical malpractice and mistakes killed 5 times more people than firearms, but nobody's trying to take your doctors. Nobody's trying to take your doctors. And David makes the point, suicides are not accidents. No, they're not accidents. They are intentional self-harm. But taking away the firearm would not change that. I mean, the Japan, which has some of the most stringent gun laws in the world, still has a higher rate of suicide than the West. Right? So including suicides in that number does nothing. I mean, it's not I think those are incidental deaths that would have occurred for the most part anyway. Again, each one a tragedy, but there you go. Harold said he'd never heard of Charlie Kirk until this week. I think there's been a few people who've never heard of Charlie Kirk. I think his videos online, if you go back, go back and watch some of the interactions that Charlie Kirk had with students on campus. And you'll see a man who was always calm. He always tried to be polite. He gave students a venue who disagreed with him to be able to stand up there and express their opinions. And he would always calmly and rationally debate them, sometimes when they were shouting him down. But he never got, he never got worked up. It was interesting. It was just interesting to watch. And he was always very good at making some great points. And like I said, sometimes you'd see that light in their eyes when they realized that when they realized that he was making a point that was making them really think. That was when it was really interesting. All right, here we go.
What the hell's an assault weapon? What isn't? If I assault you with a penguin, doesn't that make it an assault weapon? Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay, we're continuing now, Firearms Friday, and we're coming back around to the death of Charlie Kirk, because I think that, I'm seeing some reactions from those on the left, which are reprehensible and heinous, and I've seen some reactions from those on the right, who their reaction concerns me. Let me just put it that way. But before we get into that, my concern for some of the reactions of some people on the right, let me go back to the left, because I think there's a new fracture point on the Democratic or progressive side of the equation. Because we did see some surprising responses from some of the usual suspects who would normally, not AOC obviously, but who would normally equivocate or make some kind of commentary about he was a horrible person, but kind of thing. But we saw many mainstream Democrats basically just come out and say this is heinous and it should never have happened and nobody deserves it, without any real qualifiers on the beginning, which I think is how most people should react. It's how most, I think, people understand that. But see, then there's this other component of the Democratic Party that have the commentary like, it's a good start, more to come. What was one of the ones that I just saw? Oh, I thought I was depressed, but this just brightened my day. These were reactions to the killing of Charlie Kirk. He got what he deserved. That's a good start, right? These are the kind of commentaries. And I got to tell you, I was having this conversation yesterday with Brendan Berger, my former producer, that I think that there is a component of the Democratic Party and of the progressive movement who's starting to understand, and I think they've been seeing this in bits and pieces, but they're starting to understand that they have a tiger by the tail, that they have, used rhetoric and heavy-handed language, Hitlerian kind of responses, the evil, the Antichrist, it's danger to democracy. They've fanned the flames of their base, and they have whipped up the mob into a frenzy. And suddenly, I think that they have started to realize more and more, because it used to be say, oh, now they're figuring out that they'll eat your own, right? I think now they're realizing that they have a tiger by the tail. And that they can't let go, that they have whipped the mob up into a frenzy and they have lost control. We watched, there has been several videos. One of them was from, and I've just totally, Dean Withers. He is one of like Charlie's, not nemesis, but his opposite on the internet. He's He's a blogger. He and Charlie were at odds all the time. But he did a live stream when Charlie died and said that this was unbelievable and that this was wrong and everything else. And his own viewership started to threaten him and to, call him out and say that he was a sellout and everything else, simply for expressing how it was wrong to kill somebody for their viewpoints or their beliefs. And I think many of the other mainstream Democrats are realizing that this is this is a problem. And I don't know what the motivation of the killer was. I don't know. I don't know what the what his mindset was. I quite honestly, I don't care. The reaction of the people to the actual event, though, is telling to us. Because I think that they expect that there was actually a video of one guy whose name was, his username was Masshole Liberal. And he was like, oh, this is a good start. Now we should go into the churches. And now we should go into, they've been coming into the schools, so now we should go into the churches and do this there. And there are other places where they gather. And, I'm just going to watch. I think this is great. I mean, this is the reaction, right? They think that this is a good thing. And I think you're going to find that it's, that they think that now they can win, that this is their reaction. But here's the problem. The problem is there are people out there who've been kind of disengaged, maybe not engaged necessarily in politics, who are seeing those reactions amongst their amongst their own side, and they are absolutely aghast. You just go out there and look. This is one of the better videos. This is one of the better clips that I saw yesterday of people who said, I've been a Democrat, but this is outrageous.
So far, I've seen videos of just the left being pro-unaliving political opponents, whether that be Trump, J.D. Vance, people celebrating what happened to Charlie Kirk today. It's just disgusting behavior. The fact that I have been a part of the left for 7 years, I never thought we'd get to the point where I would have to look at my own party and be like, oh, hold on, I can't support you anymore because everything that you are doing right now is against your political viewpoints and your values and beliefs. To sit here and promote gun violence against your opponents is wrong. And it arguably makes you worse than the other side because you're basically saying these people deserve to be unalived because our political beliefs are more important and should stand and should have more value than a human life. Ooh. Yeah, that doesn't sit right with me at all. No.
And people are coming around to just ask the question, why can't we all just get along? I saw several major posts yesterday from people who were like, I supported and contributed to Obama. I paid big bucks for that. When Trump became president in 2016, I pulled my kids out of the school because one of their teachers was a MAGA supporter and all this other. And he goes, today, he basically used some language and said, I'm done. Today I registered Republican. This was the day after the Charlie Kirk shooting because of the reaction from the left. But it doesn't have to be quite that. It doesn't have to be quite that visceral. Terrence Wren, who's on Facebook as who We're All Human. He has a website called We Are Human, or a Facebook page called We Are All Human, who basically just deals with some positivity and some other things. He never really got political, but even he came out and was like, wait a second. Wait just a second. And he says it rather well.
To be honest with everybody, I never knew anything about Charlie Kirk. So that's why when I was hearing about him being shot, I didn't speak on it or anything like that because I felt like I wouldn't know much to be able to offer to the situation. But as I've been seeing around, Many of people saying a bunch of disrespectful and disgusting things about this man after he done lost his life, all because it seems that he had his own opinions and his own mind, and just because y'all disagree with him, people feel like it's okay that this happened to this man. And not only that, what really got me to do this video is when I heard that his wife and his child was there to see this man be shot. You didn't have to like him. You didn't have to agree with him. Hell, you didn't even have to know him. But to know that a wife and a child had to watch him be unalived in front of them is absolutely heartbreaking, and your heart should break because of that, because it's not fair and it's not right to them that they had to endure that and now have to relive that for the rest of their lives. And for someone to take this man's life, for him to have his own opinions, is absolutely foul and up. And it should tell us even more so as humans here in America how much this division has really gotten to people around our country, and how much we truly need to start standing for each other, coming together with each other, regardless of left, right, up, down, religion, political views, sexual preference, orientation, skin color. It does not matter. When are we as humans going to learn that it's okay for us to agree to disagree with each other and continue to go forward with each other? Since when are we all okay with having the freedom of speech or wanting the freedom of speech, but being okay with a man unalive for using his freedom of speech? Martin Luther King Jr. said it best: an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That means if it could happen to Charlie Kirk, it could happen to you and or somebody else that you love, or somebody else whose opinions you agree with. And if you applaud this and you condone this, then that means you would have to applaud and condone it if somebody turned around and did it to somebody that you love, that you shared opinions with. As I've been trying my best to hold back tears as I'm doing this video, it's truly sad and up to see how humans are behaving towards each other. Because if humans don't start to change the way that we treat each other and view each other now, things are only going to get worse. And each of us are raising younger generations in this world that's going to grow up, and they're going to become the adults. And how would things be then? I want to offer my condolences to Charlie Kirk's family, and also rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. That man didn't deserve to lose his life for having his own opinions.
He makes some super valid points. I mean, from the fact that they feel justified in coming after you. We saw that justification over and over and over again in the response. In the question of what are we teaching our children, and we're going to get into that here in just a moment. But that really is the warning. And that is the warning to a lot of us, that we need to be watchful on things. Because Charlie was, they didn't kill Charlie simply because he believed a certain way, or he believed that, that because simply because of his beliefs or his words. I mean, that's what they'll tell you, because he was hateful and misogynist and racist. I mean, all these things that he's being accused of. And yet, if you go back and look at his videos, that's not what he says. But there was a reason why they did this. There was a reason why this, and whether this is the actual killer's motivation, which we don't know yet. I mean, he's in custody now, supposedly, but we don't know yet. But Nick Freitas, I mentioned it yesterday, he pointed out exactly why.
Let's get one thing straight. They didn't murder Charlie Kirk because he was an extremist or a fascist or a threat to democracy or inciting violence or any of the other reasons that they're now trying to put out on X and TikTok and everywhere else. They murdered him because he was effective. He was effective. The man made incredible arguments while at the same time always trying to seek out common humanity. He might have disagreed with arguments, but he didn't hate anyone. And they murdered him. That's what happened.
And I think that really, and whether that's the killer's ultimate motivation, but that is the reaction from those that heard about the death and celebrated it and danced in the streets and laughed and made the comments and everything. They are happy that he's gone because he was effective. Now, what does this mean for us? And where do we go from here? There were some tweets from people that I admire or follow, and those tweets there's a component in there of we need to decide how we're going to react to this. And this comes back again to our Firearms Friday point. I want to start off with a quote from Matt Walsh, who I follow, and I appreciate his writings and the things that he does. And he then had a response to his post from Riley Gaines, who is, we know who Riley Gaines is, the swimmer. Matt Walsh says, I know some of you want to do the kumbaya thing. You want to say that the celebration of Charlie's death is only happening on the fringes. I'm sorry, but that's not true. They jeered and heckled him in Congress yesterday. That's kind of a misnomer. Sidebar here. When Marjorie Taylor Greene asked for a prayer about Charlie, that's when they got up there and they started crowing and heckling. They did have their moment of silence, but he said they jeered and heckled him in Congress yesterday. The left wants us dead. That is a mainstream view. It just is. It's the truth. They couldn't be any clearer about it. Stop lying to yourself, face the facts, and act accordingly. Riley Gaines responds by saying they've called us Nazis for years now. They feel entirely morally justified in killing people like Charlie, you, and me. They genuinely believe it's the righteous thing to do because they've been told by the mainstream media, academia, corporate America, etc., that it is. Then Eric Brakely said, anyone I see celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk is telling me that they would celebrate my death if I were assassinated in a similar manner. Followed by Black Pill on X, who said, if they thought Charlie Kirk was too extreme and deserved to die, imagine what they think of you. Because all told and all in all, Charlie Kirk was really a fairly moderate guy. He wasn't a full-on MAGA Republican in some way. I mean, he was a fairly moderate guy. And what he didn't have a lot of rhetoric. He would get up there and debate those students in the thing and just be calm and cautious. But if they think he was too extreme and deserved to die, imagine what you feel if you are more conservative than how. And then my friend Eric July, he's a blogger and a podcaster and an online personality who's a libertarian. He's an anarcho-capitalist libertarian, ANCAP. Eric said, make no mistake, the evil people celebrating the death of Charlie also want you dead too. Pretending otherwise is a death trap, and it's not something you can afford to be idealistic on. If this is to be sorted out, realities need to be addressed. Now, are these overreactions or misstatements? I don't think that they're necessarily misstatements and overblown, and I think that there probably are a component of people out there who are celebrating the death of Charlie that would be okay with you dying, with me dying. They'd be okay with that. That's the acceptable price of getting rid of our hate speech and doing whatever. You can't continue to other people. You can't continue to other and continue to, call them Hitler and call them because what would be the patriotic thing to do? If Hitler was in front of you today and you could have stopped Hitler, what would you do? You would have killed him, right? That's the thought experiment. But see, that kind of thinking blows things all out of proportion when all they hear all day long is how this person's Hitler and this person's evil and this person's this and this person's that, without doing any of the real work themselves to figure out if that's the truth. And they're starting to see that those words have consequences. And again, I think it's starting to cause people to open up their eyes in many ways, but we're going to get back to that here in just a second. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return in just a moment. How should we react? That's what we're going to answer. And what about the kids? We'll continue in just a moment.
It's the Michael Dukes Show.
Why not take a quick break?
Be right back. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Joel says something, and I think he says, this isn't political, Michael. It's spiritual. I think it's not only political. I believe it's spiritual. It's a little bit of both. Richie says the left can't handle a respectful disagreement. They're incapable of making a valid argument for the views they've adopted. And rather than grow and learn from Charlie Kirk's message and legacy because they are learning that they can act that way with no accountability, they feel emboldened to cross lines that normal people still adhere to. I mean, I think that there's also some of that on both sides of the aisle. It's more predominant in my viewpoint on the left. But we're starting to see that and have over the last 10 years seen more and more of that kind of reaction, even on the right. David says, here is the typical person who's a leftist. My 3 brothers and 1 sister who live in Iowa only listen to MSNBC. My oldest brother's favorite is Rachel Maddow. I've given up trying to talk sense to them. They will just not admit that there are other views. I cannot even get them to listen to CNN. That's the echo chamber. And that's part of the problem and the curse of this social media thing that we're on right now. Is it is specifically designed to create an echo chamber because that's what gives you that little adrenaline, that little serotonin bump, is when your views are validated and confirmed by those who believe just like you. Richie continues to say, the reality is the soulless individuals celebrating what happened to Charlie Kirk are not stable mentally. Normal people suggesting anyone with opposing perspectives to the left or targets are perfectly justified in feeling that. I mean, that's the thing. I wonder about the mental stability of some of these people. I mean, just I mean, you could go out and see this, folks. This is not me just making it up. Trust me, I just Googled it yesterday, and I came up with a whole bunch of TikToks, Facebook shorts, or YouTube shorts, Facebook reels, Instagram posts, where people were literally giggling and dancing and smiling and, about this. There's something fundamentally wrong going on here. But I think it's going to have a price. That's what I think it's going to have a price. And we're going to talk about that here. I think we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. Barbara said, just like the Fairbanks City Council tried to ban political signs, they'll do whatever they can to silence the people. That's it. I mean, that's 100% right there. And I think Riley Gaines's point, again, needs to be made. They've called us Nazis for years now. When you dehumanize someone, when you label them in such a way over and over and over again, it gives people almost permission to deal with it. Because again, if you were faced with that hypothetical situation of here's a gun in your hand and there is Hitler before he did what he did, what do? Well, wouldn't you have a moral obligation to save 4 million Jews and all the people that lost their life? And I mean, wouldn't you have a moral obligation to do that? So if they keep saying that somebody's a Nazi or somebody's Hitler, I mean, that's again, there's a cost to those kind of words. Anyway, Joel said it got so bad that Blue Sky, the liberal mouthpiece of the world, had to issue a warning. Yeah, that's what it is. It's troubling. You can tell there's many quotes going around from Charlie, but one of them that he said was, you can tell a lot about somebody by how they react to somebody's death. And that's a fact. That's a truth right there. I'm sorry, Chris Cheng just just telling him I still got stuff to work on here. All right, Chris Cheng will be joining us here this morning, and we will continue. All right, 20 seconds out. Yeah, Kendall says it right there. Let me say this because I'm gonna wrap that back around to what I was just saying. All right, we're gonna continue the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Here we go.
What the hell is an assault weapon? Does that mean that if we hurt your feelings, you should consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can accept that. Here's Michael Dukes. Kind of a dick, but somewhat funny.
All right, we're continuing today. Firearms Friday, our discussions, and we're going to wrap this all back around, but we're talking about Charlie Kirk, the reactions, what's been going on, how things are happening. And somebody just asked the question in the chat room. Rick said, does anyone know if they're talking about this in schools? Well, Rick, that's an interesting question. Kendall Cruz, who was on the program earlier this week talking about her time in the borough school district in the Matsu, said, I'm highly concerned by how many doctors, nurses, therapists, and teachers on X, TikTok, and Blue Sky that were celebrating the assassination. These professions have historically been empathetic personalities, and it seems as though healthcare and education have gone the opposite direction. And I mean, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. There was several videos. This was one of the better ones that I think, the more articulate ones that I pulled out, that talk specifically about what effect is this going to have on our kids. This is the Idaho Politics MAGA Mom, is what she goes by on TikTok.
So I have high schoolers that were in school today when they found out about Charlie Kirk's assassination. And when the class found out, the majority of the students started cheering. And then the teacher said, well, he was kind of a bad guy. I am so angry right now. No teacher should be pushing that type of hate in a classroom. Sitting in a classroom and you are listening to your students cheering when somebody was murdered. In a government class, by the way. And that's your message. That is the problem we have here in America. And that is not what we should be saying to children. The conversation should have been, we don't all have to agree and you don't have to like what he says, but you should never celebrate somebody's murder because they think differently than you. We no longer live in a society where we can have political conversations and still respect others' views. We are dealing with a radicalization that is so beyond hateful, and it has to stop. This could have been a great teaching moment for a government teacher. Do your research and get grounded in your views so that you know how to debate the things that you stand for. Because being able to coexist with people that don't align with you politically is a necessity in society, and it makes for good governance.
And I think this is going to backfire. You've already seen the reactions. There's a site that was already tracking people who were professionals, a lot of teachers, doctors, veterinarians, professionals, and then just regular old people who were doing this. And people started calling them out. And people started getting them. Dowd over on MSNBC, he got fired for suggesting that it was one of Charlie's supporters just shooting a gun off in the air. It's already happening. They've already started firing people. I think it will have the opposite reaction. I really do. I think that will do more to change hearts and minds on the left than anything that we could say. How do I know that? Jillian Michaels was on News Nation And she had a very similar story, but you could just tell that this is somebody who's questioning who she's hanging out with.
Do people realize sort of what Charlie was about?
Some of us do. Some of us clearly don't. What I want to say about Charlie is that he and I had numerous disagreements. I'm a woman who's married to a woman. And despite that, he invited me on his podcast. He had me speak at his Turning Point event. He platformed me. He retweeted me. This is a guy that was willing to engage in debate to resolve disagreements. And the fact that I am seeing celebration, and I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to make this about any red, blue. I don't want to be divisive here, but this is disgusting. I got a tweet from my daughter today. I'm not thinking clearly. I got a text from my daughter today telling me that kids at her school were celebrating. Okay, at my daughter's high school. Something is wrong in this country. The divisiveness, the rhetoric, the othering has got to stop now.
There's a woman who sounds like she's questioning where she's at and the people she's hanging out with. So the question is, what will our reaction be to all of these things, right? What will our reaction be to those on the left who truly would be okay with us being dead, if not actively wishing for our deaths because we disagree with them? How do we react to those on the right who want to say we need revenge? Now, anybody who knows Charlie knows that that is not what he believed or not what he wanted. So how will we react to that? What is our reaction to that? Where do we go? We're going to pick that up on the other side. We're going to go to Chris Cheng right after. But I've got a few final thoughts on what will our reaction be. That's coming up here in just a moment on the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more here in just a moment. Where do we go from here? Because this is a turning point. And we need to be prepared. Back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Sorry, I just looked at Anthony's comment. Yeah, sure. Charlie Kirks, law-abiding Christian fans brought firearms into a federally mandated gun-free zone and negligently discharged a firearm in a crowd of thousands in celebrations. It was such a stupid hot take. It was anything that he could do to try and make it about, what it was about. I mean, it's, David says, when a young person spends this is a hot take, which I completely disagree with. When a young person spends a lot of time in violent video games, they become hardened to the reality of killing a person. It makes it easy and natural. David, I have played thousands of hours of video games, and my children have probably played thousands of hours of video games. And there's a difference between fantasy and reality. And as much as people who don't understand video games would like to point the finger and say that that's it, and I know Bobby Kennedy now is saying, "Oh, there might be a connection." They've been trying to do that for it. Right. That's Pushwa. Okay. How do we say one death means more than another? That was a big thing I saw. I think it's about how famous you are is how important their death is. And I know some people tried to make that point, but I think what it was that it was the example and the fact that it was so blatantly public. That's what I think people got. And the fact that he was just talking, just having a conversation with people. That he wasn't sitting there railing and ranting and talking about it, wasn't giving a speech. He was just answering questions and having a conversation with people. Richie says the reaction can no longer be sitting by doing nothing. People are beyond tired of endless investigations. What our reaction should be is simple. Follow the rule of law. Expedite the process. So these animals aren't sitting on death row for 20 years. David just did a boomer. That's what he just said. MD, you're a very small sample. David, there are millions of people who play video games out there. Millions of people. And they're not all out there shooting people in the face because they understand the difference between there's a difference between the two. They know the difference between, reality and fantasy. Video games are a distraction of real life. Sure. So is TV or books or anything, sports. They're all distractions from real life. You say that like it's a bad thing, Robert. Get video games killing people, desensitized the brain. Okay. It's not real, right? I just want to point out, that the little pixels on the screen aren't real people. Anyway, I want to finish up with my final little thought, and Chris is already in the chat, or is already in the green room. Take your time, Chris. I don't want you to rush. He's finishing his breakfast there. I don't want him to, don't choke on anything. Okay. I have to finish this thought, Chris, before I get in board, and then you can, I guess, react to it, because I've got some pretty powerful stuff here that I want to finish with, because I think we have an opportunity here, folks. We have a choice, and I know that some people are pushing, that we need to, using language like we need to fight back. We need to do, and I think that we've got to be cautious. We have to be prepared, right? We have to be prepared, because I think there are a contingent of people out there that would be okay with killing us. Conservatives, people who don't agree with their viewpoint. I think there's a contingent of them. It's not all of them, obviously, but just go look at Blue Sky and you see that there's a goodly portion that would be okay. If they're okay with Charlie Kirk being killed, I'm sure they'd be okay with me being killed. But it means that I just need to be prepared. I mean, that's how we come back to the Second Amendment. We come back to going forth armed. We come back to, making sure that we can protect ourselves and our loved ones from that kind of craziness. Now, obviously, one shot from 200 yards at a distance. Okay, that's, you really can't protect yourself from that. But if I have the opportunity, I want to be prepared for that. But that doesn't mean that we go on the offense with violence. We just continue to prepare ourselves. Do what we can to close that gap of preparedness so that we have the ability to do it. Lisa says, my husband loves Fortnite. He socializes on there and play games with people all over the world. Is pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, again, the difference between fantasy and reality, people. I mean, I know some people just don't get video games. I'm a video game nerd. All right. My first video game was Pong. Seriously, Pong. All right. We're going to finish up. Chris Cheng is in the chat, is in the green room. And I just need to finish this up. This is on my heart. And I want to make a couple valid points. And then we'll jump over to Chris. I am the elder nerd. MD, the elder nerd. I am the elder nerd. That's true. 100%. I'm wearing my Drake Interplanetary shirt today. Come on. That's from Star Citizen, for those of you who don't know. Anyway, let's get to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
This is my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live across the world at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. We're just finishing up. Hour 1 has been a discussion on the reaction and what our takeaway should be on this whole Charlie Kirk thing, his assassination, and the reaction from those on the left, because there's 2 different kinds of reactions. There's the reaction from those who are, kind of human and say violence is not the answer, not equivocating in any way, regardless of who you are or whether you like the guy. Violence is not the answer. And then there's those who are celebrating. And then there's a reaction to that reaction from those on the right who are starting to say, this is us gearing up for Civil War 2.0. So what should our reaction be? Now, we talked a little bit about the kids, and we're going to have to get into that probably next week as well, because I think that is the most terrifying thing to me, is that the kids were there. In many schools, the kids were cheering when this went on, which is just heartbreaking and terrifying. But my question now is, what will our reaction be, and how does that equate to the Second Amendment? The reason I go forth armed is to be able to protect myself and my family and those around me, always. This just crystallizes a little bit why I would want to do that, because there's obviously a component, there's a cadre of people out there that we've seen publicly celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk that would celebrate my death if I was killed in a similar manner. That's not everybody, but there's a chunk of them out there. Yet another good reason to go forth armed. But should I be advocating for the Civil War thing? No. I'm just going to say, I was going to hold back on that and not say, but no. Our reaction will shape the future of this. How will we react? Damian Brian Felder said this.
Today is day 1. I know a lot of y'all are still processing what happened to Charlie Kirk, but I'm here to tell you that today is day 1. If we now become scared of standing up and speaking out about what's right, then the evil forces celebrating right now have won. I am not willing to give them that victory, and I hope you aren't either. We've been trending towards this inflection point for a long time, towards this turning point, if you will. And what we do in the following days, weeks, months, and years will truly define the trajectory of this country in the future. If they are willing to do what they did to a father, a husband who simply dared to ask questions and encourage people to prove him wrong, and if they took him out just because they knew they couldn't prove him wrong and could only use violence, then they are telling you they will do that to you as well. Especially if you now choose to be silent, to be afraid, to be scared of individuals who would do something like this simply because of a political difference of opinion. So today is day 1. And what are you going to do with it?
How will you react? Will you be silent? Will you take a stand? Will you give in to terrorism? That's what this is. I don't know if you know who Patrick Bet-David is, but he is an economist. He's on the internet quite a bit. He's famous for being on the YouTube show Surrounded, where you get a bunch of college-age kids. He's very similar to Charlie Kirk in that way. He'll surround himself with college kids and then take on basically a lot of the leftist viewpoints and agendas. And he's very good. He was at a Turning Point event when he got the news that Charlie had been killed. And he asked, how will we react? What we do. And they asked him, do you want to go on stage? Because he found out as he was going on stage.
Many people react in a place of fear. Security's on the back. Do you want to hit the stage? Of course I'm going to hit the stage. What do you mean? Dude, this is not how we roll. You think America accidentally became the greatest country in the world? You think this happened because we didn't have courage? You think this happened because we didn't have to fight? You think this happened because the leaders, the founding fathers, were scared? No. We're the luckiest people alive. But in moments like this, we can either get our temperature to go high, lose our cool, react accordingly, or we can calm the nerves down, become examples and leaders. Simultaneously staying tough, calling out the truth, and being willing to fight for this guy who's been pouring into what he believes in. All Charlie did is he loved America.
So we have a choice. We have a choice here. And one thing that's come to the forefront of my brain in all this is that my religious beliefs have always been, I don't wear it on my shirt sleeve. It's private. I mean, I've made no secret of the fact that I'm a Christian, that I believe in God, the redemption of Jesus. I've made no secret of that. I don't wear it on my shirt sleeve. I just don't necessarily bring it up. But it really is on my heart today to say those are the kind of things that Charlie brought forward and something that I admired about him. It was just not my style. Maybe it should be. Maybe I should be talking more about, because again, I'm a libertarian, live and let live. You have to make your choices. Here's my choice. I'm trying to live by example. Here's my choice. I choose Jesus. I choose this. I choose this, this way of life and doing these things. And maybe I should be more vocal about it. But I am damn sure not going to be frightened into a corner by this kind of behavior. I'm going to continue to tell the truth, and we should all continue to tell the truth. We should continue to proselytize to our fellow man about the ideas of freedom and liberty. But we should not be embracing the anger. We should not be embracing hatred of our fellow man, even when they do things like this, even when they celebrate the death of someone, even when we still need to have logic, rhetoric, and reason. We still need to reason those things out. Charlie never hated anybody. He just disagreed with them. And they tried to bring them to his way of thinking. So I think the answer is we need to live from Charlie's example. And Charlie had some final words. He didn't know there were final words at the time, but he was ready for this eventuality.
How do you want to be remembered? I mean, if I die, everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my life.
Mission accomplished, Charlie. Mission accomplished, my friend. Because the truth is, in all the things that we've covered in the last hour, we are all Charlie. Right? And that's the example that we should lead by. We should all be like Charlie. To agree to disagree, to have a rational, reasonable conversation, to try and tell people the truth, to try and elucidate facts instead of feelings, to try and go through those things and to take a stand, to be a beacon. That's what we need to do. And whether you wear your religious beliefs on your sleeve or you just live them as an example of a day-to-day life, stand strong in those beliefs. Be kind. Be understanding, but be strong. Because, again, we are Charlie, all of us. And be prepared for any of that. I'm going to take a break. We're going way early, but that's fine because Chris Cheng is hanging out. He's been patient with us, and I appreciate him for that. We're going to continue with Chris Cheng here in just a minute. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We return right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Joel just said, Chris Cheng's in the green room, and Joel said, my favorite Gaysian. He's my favorite Gaysian. Oh my gosh. Way to bring me up out of the serious moment there, Joel. Thanks. All right, let's get down to it here. Chris Cheng. I mean, I just dropped this heaviness on him, and now he's got to come in and jump in. Hey, how you doing there, my friend? What's going on?
Oh, good morning. Yeah, obviously it's been a rough week. It's been a really rough week trying to process and understand, not just what happened, but like you've been talking about, like where do we go from here? What is the best response, for us as individuals? What's the best response for us as a country? I definitely have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm happy to be on the show today to share that with you and your listeners, and be part of the conversation. It's an inflection point, right, Chris? I mean, that's where we're at right now. We're kind of at that point where we have to decide how we're going to react to this as let me bring us closer together. I want to bring us closer together, brother. We have to decide how we're going to react to this, because we can respond with anger towards the people who are celebrating and all that kind of stuff. We could respond. I mean, we could respond, with violence in kind. But first of all, that's not what Charlie would have espoused. And second of all, it's definitely counterproductive. I think, and you live in San Francisco and everything else, and I don't know what your experience has been with people around you, because I know you're surrounded by a lot of folks who are not conservative, but I think this will have a backfiring effect. Because of response of people like Jillian Michael. I saw several posts where people they said, I've had enough of this. I'm registering Republican, right? I've had enough of these kind of responses. I'm leaving the party, or I'm doing this, or I'm rethinking why I'm over here, because this is not who I am. I think that is going to be probably one of the unintended consequences of these actions. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think first and foremost, I think we need to be engaged on the issue. I've actually seen a lot of people bury their heads in the sand, right, and kind of treating this actually as if it's just another political assassination, which it's not, right? It really is not. This is a watershed moment, a very dangerous moment in our country, and I think being engaged, I think is sort of table stakes, right, on this issue, to at minimum be aware of who Charlie Kirk was, how good of a person he was, also how controversial of a person he was, but also why, right? Why was he controversial? Well, he was, my take is he was controversial because he challenged people's beliefs
and he wanted to talk to our country, right? He was one of the most brave Americans who was traveling the country, talking to Americans of all walks of life, of all political stripes. And it was an intellectual debate. And sometimes not even a debate. It was just a conversation, right? And, part of what Charlie Kirk was trying to do was, sure, right? He was trying to convince Americans to his conservative, philosophy and trains of thought. But most importantly, that's not always going to happen, clearly.
Right.
So a primary goal of his was to at least have a mutual understanding, right? To create that mutual understanding and mutual respect of look. Right?
The dialogue, to create that dialogue between the two of them.
Exactly.
And we've only got 30 seconds here. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's totally my style and my speed. And we've lost a real patriot, someone who cared very deeply about our country, and it's a shame. And part of my response to this incident too is condemning people who are celebrating his death. I mean, it's just abhorrent. It is unacceptable, and political violence has no place in America. And my thoughts are with his family, and I hope we can move forward through this in a positive way.
Here we go. Let's do it.
What the hell's an assault weapon?
If we could just figure out how to get all of the murder guns and the attack guns and not keep selling those to people and just sell protection guns, I think that would be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right, we're continuing now. Chris Cheng, Top Shot champion. Season 4 of the show Top Shot, author of the book Shoot to Win, spokesperson, past and present for the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and of course, all around good guy. And we were just talking during the break here with Chris. He was actually listening on the first segment. He was sitting in the chat room waiting patiently for me to come to him. And I appreciated his patience. I just really wanted to get that off my heart at the end, because this is the time when we can't let our emotions rule us, Chris, because it's easy when we're outraged and we see this kind of behavior. It's easy for us to lash back and lash out. But the smart move here, and I think, again, I saw a meme that said, George Floyd dies and the city burns, right? And then Charlie Kirk dies and people come together. And maybe that's what we need to do, continuing to be that example. Even loving people who would despitefully use you and be, celebrate and everything else. We still need to be the example. We need to live by, kind of the example that Charlie set of being strident, being strong, but being calm and just wanting to portray the truth to people. Right.
Yeah. And doing so in a non-violent way, right? If we're going to continue to have healthy disagreements in our country, right, ranging from policy to politics, et cetera, right? If we're going to continue to be a country, we have to learn how to embrace our differences of opinion, right? And to not let our emotions get the best of us. And I've seen extremely concerning emotional responses on both sides of the political aisle. And I mean, and also, sort of removing politics aside, these negative, one of the most concerning responses I've seen, mostly from my conservative friends, is these phrases: righteous rage, and talking about righteous violence. And I do not like those phrases at all, right? To cloak violence, to embrace violence as some sort of righteous crusade. It is that is an extremely dangerous, slippery slope, right? To go down. And the I get it, right? I mean, I am upset and angry, like many Americans, over the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And for me, the question is always, well, how do I take my emotions, and in this case, frustration and anger, and channel that into something positive, right? Something positive that will bring us together, that will help heal our country. And, for me, I don't have a great answer at the moment other than we cannot resort to violence, right? I think for me, it's about, after every mass shooting or instance of gun violence, for me, this is also about the response is it's sort of the consistent things that we always talk about, right? That this is one person, right, who has mental health issues, who pulled the trigger, right? There's obviously calls for gun control, right? This is not a gun control issue, right? This is a mental health issue, right? We are a sick country, and we are not taking care of each other. And I've come on to your show many, many times over the years, right, to say we need to do a better job of taking care of each other, of taking care of the people in our communities. Of course, it will be no surprise to me when we see more details about the suspect, right, who has been apprehended. He's probably had some sort of history, right, of something bad, right? And his community probably knows that he's a problem, right? And this question becomes, well, right, what were the signs? How were they missed? Or what could have been done? But we need to do a better job of taking care of each other. I think social media plays a part in this. I think social media is, I'm a technologist. I believe in technology in general. But social media, I don't think has brought us together in the best of ways, right?
No, we were talking about that earlier. I mean, it is literally designed to put us in these silos, because, hey, we all want that serotonin hit, right? We all want that feeling of likes and shares and everything else. It is customized and specifically designed to put us in silos where our own beliefs are reinforced. We don't want to get challenged. We don't want to see things that we don't agree with. And so it has, over the last 10 years, it's forced us basically it gives us a chance to avoid any kind of thought that would create any cognitive dissonance in our own mind. Any kind of thing that causes us to stutter step, we don't like that. Yeah, and that just continues to feed that problem.
And it's not just that, but footage of Charlie Kirk's assassination, has been making the rounds, and I'm not watching it. I specifically will not watch that kind of footage. I'm not going to feed the algorithm. I'm not going to. I don't think it's healthy for us to be watching violent, murderous content like that. And social media is the platform, right, that is enabling that kind of content to spread unfiltered, basically. I mean, so Meta and all them, they've been talking about age restrictions and whatnot, but I mean, we all know age restrictions are something that you can pretty easily get around. And so I think I've been thinking a lot about Charlie and how he was doing a lot of good for our country. But I also have been thinking about, how did the shooter get to this point, right? Of thinking, oh gosh, right, I need to assassinate Charlie Kirk. And one thing that I've noticed over the the past few years about people who people who disagree, right, with one another, it often turns into dehumanizing, right, the person who you disagree with, right? This is it's no longer a simple disagreement, right? It's language that turns into, oh, you're a racist, you're a transphobe, you're a homophobe, you're a this, you're a that. It's something, some negative pejorative label just because you disagree, right, with somebody about some topic. And that is also just not healthy, right? That's an unhealthy response to a discussion, right? If you disagree with somebody, to start calling them names, to start dehumanizing them. And I mean, we all know what happens when we dehumanize people. It makes it easier to either even think about inflicting violence, right, on a group or a person who you don't see as human. And
Yeah, and I think again that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the language and things like this, the Hitlerian responses of again, if you're in a room, Chris, and somehow they plonked Hitler down in front of you before he did all the things that he was going to do and you had a gun in your hand, what is your moral imperative? What is your moral response to that? Do you save 4 million people plus 4 million Jews plus all the other deaths surrounding? Of course you do the right thing, right? Well, now that they've posted and plastered anybody that doesn't agree with their viewpoint as Hitler or a fascist or all this other language that we see out there, then it almost becomes a moral imperative, right, for people to do that, and it becomes justifiable. And that, again, for just holding a different viewpoint. It's not that they truly are Hitler. It's not that they truly are fascist. It's just for having a different viewpoint. And that is the danger of that. And again, the reinforcement of social media. I just saw a quote that said Governor Cox of Utah basically said that social media is a cancer on our society. And he was specifically talking about the fact that the actual shooting video was going around and staying up and people, and I've seen it. Okay. I saw it right as it was first. I saw it within the first 40 minutes. And I don't need to watch it again. I watched it once and that was enough for me. I was not expecting it to be quite so graphic and see it, but nobody needs to see that, right? That's not something that I want to have in my kid's brain or my wife's brain or anybody else's brain, but we just recycle it and we become inured to it.
Yeah. And I have had many a thought to delete my social media accounts, right? And it's so part of the way that I like to live my life is I don't like to be addicted to anything or to be beholden to any person, to anything. But I'm addicted to my cell phone. Right. I am addicted to my cell phone,
right.
Whether it's social media, whether it's the news, whether it's just the little jingle notification sound that my phone makes. And I know that's unhealthy for me. And I've been trying to take steps, right, to manage that. And some of that is, that's just my own personal sort of my own part. Well, so part of this is right. It's my own personal problem, but I have been engaging some of my friends and family to help me with that. Right. So, thankfully it's things like, minimize cell phone use at mealtime. Thankfully, like I don't have a problem with that. Like I'm actually an enforcer of no cell phones.
No phones at the table. Yeah. No phones at the table. No, it's easy, right? It's easy to get into that.
Yeah. And so right to the point though, right. This is all about rewiring our brains to handle adversity, right? And to the world has obviously changed in so many different ways. I've been thinking a lot about political violence back in the 1960s, right? Assassination, right, of everything from just go from JFK to Martin Luther King Jr. right into the 70s to Ronald Reagan assassination, et cetera, et cetera. I was born in 79, so I wasn't alive right back in the 60s and 70s, but the only thing that kind of gives me a little comfort is that our country has been here before, right? On some level. This is different, I would say, because of technology and social media. That it's this huge megaphone, right, that amplifies everybody's feelings and emotions.
Right. Let me ask you this. Do you think that this changes the reaction of the far left? Do you think that this changes the hearts and minds of people who are kind of the moderate left? Because I just said earlier that I've seen I've seen people say, I'm walking away because this is not who we are. Do you think that is the silver lining out of this?
I think it's too early to tell, right? Because some of this is right. Like whenever there's an acute incident like this, there's always going to be sort of the knee-jerk reaction or the short-term emotional reaction. And so for me, there's this question of, well, okay, if there's, liberals who are now signing up to be Republicans, well, is this a short-term trend? Are they actually going to stick and stay with their registration?
Right.
But and so we'll see. And I think details about the shooter I think will greatly affect, right, how our country responds, right? There's a lot of speculation around the rifle and the casings and inscriptions, right, that were on these items. And, maybe he was, pro transgender, he was, pro this, anti that, we don't know the facts yet.
Right.
But when these facts do come to light, I anticipate that will greatly shape how people react. And then, of course, well, how, if we talk about politicians, depending on how Democrats and Republicans react to the shooter's bio, that will obviously then have most likely a very tremendous impact on us. And I guess I would say one thing to all of us is, however politicians react, I mean, take it with a grain of salt, right? I mean, this is, I think all of us on the show agree that we should be independent thinkers. Let's pay attention and be aware of everyone's opinions and what they're saying. But ultimately, I want to form my own opinion, right? And my own thoughts about all of this, and determine what is my place in this moment in our country's history. And I think most importantly, the question needs to be, what is the good that I can do to help make our country better? And I hope that's the question that we are all asking, right, of ourselves and of each other in this moment.
Chris Cheng, Top Shot champion. Thank you, my friend. We got to go, folks. Back with more of the Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Sorry, Chris, we were up against it there.
Time is just keep on going.
It's just slippery, man. But I think to wrap it back around to the firearms discussion, it behooves us to go forth armed, to learn as much as we can, to bring people to the gun culture, all those things. But in relation to this event, I would just say, yes, you need to go forth armed. You need to be prepared for any of these eventualities, because there's obviously people out there who I believe are mentally ill at this point and would celebrate your death. They may not participate, but they're not going to lift a finger to help you. And that you need to prepare yourself for any of those eventualities, but go forward in a positive, meaningful way.
Yeah, I have a lot of liberal friends who just do not accept the dangerous parts of our reality, right? That there are criminals out there who want to do people harm. And a lot of my friends have not wanted to talk about the Charlie Kirk assassination. So I have not had any meaningful local conversations, about this. But I do wonder if this will change some perspectives, right, in terms of having my anti-gun liberal friends better understand that, hey, there's danger out in the world. Now, let's not be paranoid about it, obviously, but we need to be prepared. It doesn't matter where you live. This is not it's not only danger doesn't only exist in cities like San Francisco,
right.
This is not a rural versus city kind of thing. This is, hey, like, there are unfortunately very bad people who exist everywhere, right? And this is not an America problem either. But it just shocks me that a lot of my friends, they're like ostriches who bury their heads in the sand. And it's sort of like, well, if I don't read and if I don't see this violence that's happening, then it doesn't exist, right? It's literally like the 6-year-old kid playing peekaboo. It's like, oh, cover your eyes. And
la 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 la, right? I mean, that's it. People don't believe the worst. They don't believe the worst can happen. They believe in the exceptionalism of, oh, that will never happen to me, and that's the problem. It can happen to anybody. I mean, 9/11. We're here we are the day after, 24 years in a day. We never believed it could happen to us. We never believed that could come to American soil, and it does. And that's the thing that we all need to acknowledge, is that bad things happen to good people, and we have to be prepared for that, for sure.
Yeah, indeed. And I'm trying my best to, admit I'm back to kind of, Charlie Kirk's philosophy and attitude is, look, I'm not trying to necessarily convince anyone to carry a gun. At minimum, I just want them to understand why, right? Some of us decide, right, to carry a firearm, right, to own a firearm to protect ourselves, right? It's your choice to not want to learn how to shoot or own a firearm. But my hope is that you at least understand and respect the civil right that we have here in our country. But table stakes is you got to at least accept the reality, right? That there are dangerous people in this world, and it is a rational conclusion to want to protect oneself.
Yeah,
that's it. It's just,
and that's the thing. It shouldn't be, it's rational to us, but to other people, it's radical. And it shouldn't be radical. It should be a rational decision to want to protect yourself, your family, your loved ones. That should be a rational decision. And instead of that radical idea. And that's, I think, where the divide is.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. It's a weird thing. It's like, most, especially humans, right? I mean, we have this self-preservation, almost like gene, right? It's of course, I want to survive, right? Many people have that drive to, right, protect yourself, right, to survive. And it's almost like a large part of our population has lost that they've gotten coddled or distracted by creature comforts, right? Thinking that they are safe. And of course, I mean, sure, right? Most of the time in our daily lives, yes, like we are safe, but to lose that sort of primal caveman, cavewoman sense of look, we should be paying attention for any type of danger. It's almost like that basic skill set has just flittered away for too many Americans who have just been lulled into this false sense of security.
Well, God bless you, my friend. Thank you for coming on board. We'll just keep on the faith. We'll just keep on keeping on. We will keep being Charlie. That's what we can do right now.
Indeed. Thank you for having me on.
Chris Cheng, Top Shot champion. Thank you, my friend. As always, it's great to talk with you, and we love having you on. Appreciate you. All right, folks. So that brings us up. As you can see, the lights are changing. My phone is buzzing. That means Willie Waffle is with us here. We're ready to go. The Michael Duke Show. Okay. All right. Well, after all that, I know it's heavy stuff. It's okay. We're going to lighten it up. We gotta have the sweet with the sour, right? So we're gonna do something frivolous now. We're gonna talk about Hollywood and entertainment and movies and more. Willie Waffle, waffle music, waffle reviewing guru extraordinaire. Hello, my friend.
I'm just a man. I'm just Willie Waffle.
I'm just a man. He's a man's world. All right. Well, let's get down to it, my friend. We got some news, and we got just a handful of movies here. What do we got? Give me the rundown of the
time.
news.
It's breaking news. Do you have a breaking news sounder? I'll make my own. Breaking news.
Okay, wait a second. Here it is. Here's the breaking news.
Okay.
Wait a second. Here it is.
Say please.
That's your breaking news. Go ahead.
The Highlander remake, starring Henry Cavill, has delayed production. Delayed production late yesterday. It was delayed until the beginning of 2026 because Mr. Cavill has gotten injured.
Oh no. Okay.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
So while he was training for the Highlander remake, they haven't revealed yet, what he was doing. I have a feeling, hey, the guy. I mean, you got to get in really good shape to do a movie like that.
Right.
And maybe it was sword training and he pulled something. Maybe he hurt his knee. We don't know. But the studio announced that the production now is going to be delayed several months. They think early in 2026 is when they'll finally get around to it. And that Cavill is injured. with an undisclosed injury.
You think he got stabbed? I mean, at some point.
Oh my God! I didn't even think of that. I
mean,
didn't
man,
even think of that.
That's some
I
vicious
figured,
stuff.
like, maybe he just, he was lifting and he tore a muscle.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I was thinking. I have a feeling it's something. Maybe he was running and he twisted his ankle and he's got torn ligaments.
Okay.
I mean, something crazy has happened to this poor man. It's going to eventually come out. It's got to come out eventually.
Right.
Because I need to know. You need to know.
Right.
We all need to know.
Well, I just thought it was because it was interesting. If you remember the original Highlander, one of the stories in the original Highlanders that Clancy Brown, who played the Kurgan, was so jazzed and jacked about working with Sean Connery that he actually went a little hog wild and almost killed Sean Connery with his big with his big sword when he cut the table in that one scene where he cuts the table in half and fights with him. And Connery was pissed, but he was just like so excited, And so you could see something like that getting a little out of hand.
Oh, totally could see it happening.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Now you've got my imagination running wild now,
exactly.
man. Like anything could have happened.
All right. Well, I'm disappointed, but whatever makes a better movie, I'm all about it. All right. What else we got? Hey, a classic never goes out of style. Michael Caine, 92 years old, and he's gonna step on the stage again.
Yeah, so Michael Caine, you might remember he announced his retirement. Gosh, I think it was about a year ago. He had starred in this small little movie. I think I don't even know if it played in the States. I think it only played over in Great Britain and in Europe, where he played a World War II vet who was in like a retirement home, and he broke out because he wanted to go to some big celebration honoring the World War II vets at one of the battles where he was. And he said, "This is the greatest way for me to go out." He goes, people love the movie. I loved the movie. I got to play the leading actor. It's just something everybody loves and everybody's happy with. And well, I'm going to go out on top. And then ka-ching, baby. He's coming back. And he's coming back. God, I can't even say it with a straight face, but it's true. He's coming back to star in a sequel to The Last Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel.
Oh, you gotta pay some bills. You gotta pay some bills, because that movie didn't do really great at the theaters locally, domestically, but I guess it has quite a following worldwide.
Yeah, this is the shocking thing. I'm with you. I didn't realize this, but it came out back in 2015. I remember it was just kind of a bomb. I mean, it's like Vin Diesel is like trying to fight, some plague that was started by a witch queen or whatever, and like Michael Caine's like his trusty sidekick and advisor and wizard and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the movie made only $27 million domestically. It did okay across the globe. It did $119 million overseas. But what has spurred them to make a sequel is that it has actually become one of the most watched movies on Netflix this year.
Oh, great. Yeah.
I mean, are these just people like, did they end up on the wrong movie? And they're like, I just don't feel like getting up and changing it now.
Sometimes, sometimes these guys have got to do it for the money. I remember Sean Connery did Dragonheart. Remember Dragonheart with Dennis Quaid?
Yes.
And that was another one of those movies that was kind of like, I liked it, but it was not, it was like a sleeper. Like it was not something you'd expect somebody like Connery to do. But anyway, hey.
Well, but that was also Michael Caine very, very famously talked about this back in the day. And he said, I do one for me and I do one for the money.
Yeah.
So I think we know which one this is.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be going on. All right. So that's good news. We'll see what that brings. Wednesday is back. Not Wednesday that you know what I mean. The TV show Wednesday.
The TV show on Netflix. Yes, and there's a lot of disappointment around Netflix right now because when season 2 came out back in August, it was like one of the biggest premieres ever. They had like 50 million views in like the first 5 days. Well, they split up the season into 2 parts, and part 2 came out last week right after Labor Day, and it did not do as well.
Yeah.
It came in with 28.2 million views which takes it down. What is that? 43%. Down 43%.
You know, this is what I keep telling them. Don't stagger it out. Just drop the whole thing. You would have had 50 million viewers watch the entire series, but instead you cut it in half and you lost almost half your views because you want to try and drag it out. It's just so stupid. Just drop the whole thing out.
And I think that splitting it also, releasing part 2 when they did was a bad idea. I mean, they literally dropped part 2 in the middle of kids are going back to school, summer is over, football season has started, people have other commitments. You know, like there's a lot going on in people's lives after Labor Day. Whereas when they dropped it in August, people were on vacation, they weren't in school, they had time to sit down and watch it.
Yeah,
I mean, they're still gonna get their viewers. I mean, you know, now I'm telling you that it was down that much, but guess what? It was still number 1 on the TV streaming charts.
Right,
just with a good amount instead of an ungodly amount of views.
So she's still going to be cashing her paycheck. It's not a big deal.
And I think they've already said they're doing a season 3.
Okay,
so that's happening. Yeah.
All right. That leads us to the last one, which is The Conjuring. Yeah, the movie came out last week, the last movie, but that's not it. But that's not it, right? I mean, that may have been the last movie, but you know where it goes from here.
Those lying so-and-sos. Oh yeah. All the promotion was the last adventure of the Warrens, right? The last movie, the last investigation they ever had. And then this week, HBO Max said, you know, we've been developing this Conjuring TV show, and we're hiring a showrunner, which means we're moving forward. We're gonna get some stars. We're gonna do this thing. We're gonna have a series on HBO Max. And I'm like, dude, I thought that was the end.
No, man, it's a cow. You just can keep milking it. That's what happens to a cow. You just keep milking it.
And I'm still telling you, I still think there's gonna be another movie, because that movie did so well financially. There's no way anybody in their right mind is walking away from that. They'll find some adventure that we haven't seen yet, right? And it'll be like a flashback. Like the Warrens will be sitting there and they'll be like, remember that time? It'll be like, well, who used to always do that? Like the Golden Girls used to do that.
It'll be like a prequel, sequel, prequel, right? Or something, you know, it'd be like exactly. Well, we'll see. I mean, you know, there's an audience for it, and you know, like they said, as long as it's good,
they're good movies.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
They're good movies.
As long as it comes down, yeah. All right. Well, that leaves us over to, we got 3 different features, and we got about 5 minutes here, so we're actually running ahead of time for where we're just like running down to the wire. So where do you want to start today?
Let's start with the Netflix documentary that I have been looking forward to this for a while. It is called AKA Charlie Sheen. That's right. It's the Charlie Sheen biography. And it's technically a documentary series because it's 2 parts. And oh dear God, each one is like an hour and a half long. It's like watching 2 movies. And they still didn't get everything. I mean, that's what's so shocking. The guy has done so many things and been involved in so many scrapes and so many controversies. They couldn't even fit them all into both of these documentary parts. And you know, it's really like, I mean, it's the story of Charlie Sheen. Yeah, and he talks about growing up and making home movies with his brother Emilio and his buddy Sean Penn. That's right. They're buddies. They grew up together. George Clooney shows up at one point. He was in their lives at one point. I mean, you know, that to me was the most interesting part. You know, seeing how they grew up, and they were the kids of Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen, a fairly large actor. I mean, a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and seeing how that impacted their lives and how it inspired them to do what they wanted to do in their lives, and making these home movies around their nice little quaint place in Malibu before Malibu became this god awful enclave of billionaires. And that to me was interesting. And then of course we start talking about his career and the rise and the drugs,
the fall,
and the women and the fall. So they really do break it up. They break it up like the first part is kind of like the rise up until like the movie career kind of falls apart,
Right.
and all the Heidi Fleiss stuff. If people remember that's the part of part one, and then part two they talk about the comeback. Going on to television, doing Spin City, doing 2.5 Men, and then of course the second fall. Although really, I think it's like the fourth fall if you're counting all of the falls. There is nobody in this world who has been giving more second chances than Charlie Sheen, and I think he'll even admit that. He may have even said that in the documentary. And I think that the problem with it is that it feels very rambling and unfocused.
Right.
Like they interview everybody in his life except for Emilio and Martin, who just didn't want to participate, and I totally can understand why.
Right.
No one really holds back. I mean, they tell you the truth about what they think of the guy. Heidi Fleiss has the best quotes ever about this guy. She clearly still hates him for very good reason.
Right.
John Cryer is in here. All of his ex-wives are in here. I mean, everybody's talking about Charlie Sheen. I just and I think the other thing I really wasn't happy with is I think they made his career sound more successful than it was at times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to deny it. He's a very successful man. He did some really good movies. He did some really good television, but they left out a lot of the stinkers. Okay?
Yeah, no. He was paying some bills from time to time as well. All right. Well, we don't want to run it down too far.
Okay.
What do you think? -1 to 4 waffles. Where are you at on AKA Charlie Sheen?
I'm at 2 waffles.
Okay.
It's passable.
It's okay. All right. Well, we got about 2.5 minutes here.
Okay.
Downton Abbey, the grand finale.
Yeah.
Is this the thing that we actually needed or not? What? Give me the rundown here.
I mean, if you're a Downton Abbey fan, oh God, you're ecstatic because this is the grand finale. This is the goodbye kiss to you, right? As we catch up with the family in the summer of 1930, and well, things are different in 1930. For those of you who know your history, the Crawley family is facing financial trouble, like everybody else,
right?
And facing possible social disgrace because there's a divorced lady now. Oh no. Yeah. So, you really get all the Downton Abbey stuff if you're into it, right? All the fancy balls, all the fancy costumes, all the behind the scenes machinations, right? I mean, it's 2.5 waffles. It's a movie for the fans. If you're just getting started now, where have you been the last 15 or 16 years?
Yeah, don't watch it if you haven't watched watch the other stuff first. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us down to just over a minute. The new Stephen King movie, The Long Walk. Give it to me.
I think a really good idea, but with some average execution. The idea is that it is a post-war dystopian America. There is just financial ruin and disaster everywhere. There is a totalitarian leadership that uses this long walk like the Hunger Games. It's supposed to inspire people because the object is 50 kids, one from each state. They're all teenage boys. They're going to start walking, and the winner is going to do it with grit and determination and fighting through and working hard, and the rest of them are all going to die. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's the downside.
Well, that sounds like an upper movie. 25 seconds. What do you think? -1 to 4 waffles. Where are you at?
I'm at 2 waffles. I think it's kind of. I think they could have developed the characters a lot more. I think they could have had a lot more battling between them. And I think we could have learned more about their motivations.
All right, Willie Waffle. We're out of time. Thanks, folks. We will see you on Monday. Be kind, love one another, live well. Michelle Hune, Michael Bowles and Jeannie Olsen on Monday. Okay. I mashed the wrong button. I was trying to bring Willie back and I mashed the wrong button. Okay. But this sounds like an interesting premise, but just weak execution or what?
Yeah, weak execution. I mean, I thought it was going to be more like the Odyssey, right? Like they're going to go on this walk and we are going to see what has become of America in this post-war world, right? We're going to see the desolation. We're going to see the pain. And there's some of that there. I don't want to totally discount it. There's some of that there. There's some of, why are each of them doing this? Like, it seems like a horrible gamble. You're either going to win riches beyond your wildest dreams or you're going to die, so, it seems like a big gamble, but they talk about how with many people, this is their only chance out. this is the best idea they've got. So they're going to enter this thing. And I think, learning more about the different characters and why they're doing it, I think would have made it more compelling, and I think would have made it more painful as each one fails, because out of 50, only one is not going to fail.
It's tough to have a cast of 50 and then be able to connect with each character. I mean, it makes it hard, but they could have gone a little further.
It is.
Yeah.
Or at least go further with the characters that they do face, that they do focus on. Like I said, there's always kind of the skeleton of the story, but not the meat of the story.
Right.
So like we have, really the one character, kind of the lead character played by Cooper Hoffman. He's the one where we really truly get the full explanation about why he's doing this. And everybody else, we get dribs and drabs, and they kind of come late, and you're like, well, if this person's making their big reveal, they must be dying soon.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
That's too bad. All right. Well, Willie Waffle, thank you so much, my friend. It's good to talk with you, folks. Again on Monday, Michael Bowles from the Matsu and Jeannie Olson from the Interior. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.